The clock struck 2 a.m. as Thomas clocked out from his shift at the diner. The streets were deserted. An unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant hum of traffic. The stillness was unnerving, amplifying every rustle of leaves and creak of a loose shutter. Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine as he tightened his grip on his backpack strap and started his walk home. He usually didn't mind the walk, even late at night, but tonight the emptiness felt different, menacing. The darkness seemed to press in, making the familiar path feel alien and unsettling. His apartment building, several blocks away, seemed miles away in the oppressive darkness. The rhythmic click of his shoes on the pavement was the only sound that accompanied him. Each step echoed in the silence, fueling his growing unease. He wished he owned a car, he'd feel safer, but for now he had to keep walking. As Thomas rounded a corner, his heart lurched. Under the sickly yellow glow of a flickering streetlight, a solitary figure danced. It was a man, tall and unnaturally thin, his limbs moving with a jerky, unsettling fluidity. His attire was an anachronism, a pristine, old-fashioned suit, complete with a fedora, casting a shadow over his face. But it was the man's face that sent chills crawling down Thomas's spine. His face was stretched into an impossibly wide grin, revealing rows of teeth that seemed too large, too numerous for a human mouth. The smile wasn't warm or welcoming, it was cold, predatory, like a wolf baring its fangs. Thomas's breath hitched in his throat. He forced himself to look away, to convince himself it was just his imagination playing tricks in the dead of night. But the image of the dancing man, the unsettling grin, was seared into his mind. He couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of something cold and hungry focusing on him from the shadows. The rhythmic click of his own footsteps was now a frantic drumbeat in his ears, urging him to move faster. He had to get away. With each step, Thomas felt a growing sense of dread. The image of the grinning man, his strange, jerky movements played on a loop in his mind. He risked a glance over his shoulder. The streetlight flickered again, plunging the spot where the man had been dancing into momentary darkness. But when the light flickered back on, the spot was empty. Relief, brief and fleeting, washed over him. He picked up his pace, his heart pounding against his ribs. The once familiar streets now seemed like a labyrinth, closing in on him. The quiet was no longer peaceful, but thick with unseen menace. He imagined the click of his shoes was echoing loudly, drawing attention to his every move. His apartment building, a beacon of safety, was still a few blocks away. He considered running, abandoning all pretense of calm. But what if it drew attention to him? What if it provoked whatever lurked in the shadows? He forced himself to maintain a brisk but steady pace, his eyes darting from shadow to shadow, searching for any sign of movement. Each time he thought he saw something, his heart would leap into his throat, only to be met with the crushing disappointment of his own fear-fueled imagination. Finally, he reached his apartment building, a wave of relief washing over him. He fumbled with his keys, his hands trembling. He finally managed to unlock the door and practically fell inside, slamming the door behind him and securing the deadbolt. He leaned against the door, gasping for breath, his heart still racing. He was safe. He made his way to his apartment and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. He breathed a sigh of relief, attributing the strange encounter to stress and lack of sleep. He started to turn away when he saw it. The grinning face pressed against the peephole, staring right at him. The man's hot breath fogged the glass as he whispered, each word sending a fresh wave of terror through Thomas's body. "I found you." The hallway light flickered. When it came back on, the face was gone. Thomas didn't sleep that night. He didn't sleep much for many nights after that. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, followed, and sometimes in the flickering light of the street lamps he would catch a glimpse of him, the smiling man, always grinning.